A perfectly cut stone wall defies the limits of ancient technology. These forgotten builders engineered structures with a precision that our modern tools struggle to match. By the end of this journey, you will see the entire timeline of human history in a startling new light. We will travel from the impossible polygonal walls of Peru to the laser-like seams of Egyptian granite boxes, uncovering a global mystery. How did cultures across the world achieve such flawless stonework, and why was this advanced knowledge lost to time? What does it truly mean for a civilization to be called advanced? Walk between the colossal limestone blocks of the Giza Plateau, and you will feel the same unnerving presence. Here, the stones are so massive and so perfectly joined that you cannot slip a razor blade between them. This is the very same signature we find halfway across the world, high in the Peruvian Andes at Sacsayhuamán. There, the walls are a dizzying puzzle of granite blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, each one carved with complex angles and curves that lock together without a single drop of mortar. How is it possible that these two cultures, separated by vast oceans and thousands of years, arrived at the same impossible standard? The similarities are too precise to be coincidence. They both used megalithic stones far beyond what we would consider practical. They both mastered a method of cutting that created interlocking joints, making their structures incredibly resilient to earthquakes. And they both achieved a surface finish that looks less like hand chiseling and more like modern industrial machining. This is not a story of two separate inventions. This is the evidence of a shared knowledge, a common understanding of stone and geometry that seems to have been distributed across the ancient world. We are not looking at the crude beginnings of construction. We are looking at the peak, a high point of engineering that appears and then mysteriously vanishes from the historical record. What could have caused such a profound loss? These walls are a geological tapestry woven from stone. Each block is a unique, irregular polygon with dozens of interlocking sides, some concave, some convex, fitting against its neighbors with a precision that defies simple explanation. This is not simple stacking. It is a form of three-dimensional engineering, a puzzle where every piece was custom-shaped to bear the weight of the entire structure and the relentless tremors of the earth. The result is a wall that moves and settles as one living entity during an earthquake, the stones locking ever tighter instead of crumbling apart. To achieve this, the builders needed more than strength. They needed a profound, almost intuitive understanding of geometry and stress. They were not just placing rocks, they were programming the wall's very response to seismic force. This leads directly to the tools. The conventional story tells us they had simple hammers made of harder stone, bronze chisels, and sand for abrasion. But try to visualize shaping a 100-ton block of granite into a complex form with 12, 15, even 20 distinct faces, all cut to mate perfectly with the equally complex faces of the adjacent stones. Using a stone hammer, you would be pulverizing the granite, not cutting it. You would be creating a rough, pitted surface, not the smooth, almost polished seams we find. The sheer time and labor involved become unimaginable. More importantly, the precision required is optical. In many places, the fit is so flawless that the stones appear to have been softened and molded together. This is not the work of brute force. It hints at a forgotten method, a technology for working stone that was somehow both powerful and delicate, a process we have yet to rediscover. This same signature of impossible precision appears again, thousands of miles to the south, amidst the high-altitude ruins of Puma Punku in Bolivia. Here, the scene is not one of intact walls, but of a cataclysmic shattering. The ground is littered with enormous blocks of andesite and granite, stones so hard they would quickly destroy modern steel tools, and it is on these fractured pieces that we see the mystery deepen into something even more perplexing. The surfaces of these stones are flawlessly flat, not just in one direction but across vast plains. Their edges are razor-sharp, forming perfect 90-degree angles and internal corners so crisp they look as if they were milled by a machine. This goes far beyond simple joins. The stones are carved with an array of bizarre geometric features. There are H-shaped slots cut with mathematical regularity, channels with dead straight parallel sides, and precision-drilled holes that run through the hard stone as if it were soft clay. The architectural logic is utterly alien. It resembles a system of modular, interlocking blocks, almost like a child's complex building toy, but carved on an immense scale from unforgiving granite. This suggests a form of prefabrication, where individual components were manufactured to exact specifications so they could be assembled on site into a larger, unknown structure. To achieve this, the builders needed more than just skill. They required a standardized system of measurement and cutting, a repeatable industrial process that guaranteed every single H-block, every channel, every dowel hole was identical. This level of standardization is the hallmark of advanced manufacturing. It is what allows us to mass-produce everything from car engines to smartphones today. Yet at Puma Punku, this system has been completely lost, leaving behind only the shattered components of a technology we can barely comprehend. The evidence points away from chisels and sand and toward something far more controlled, far more powerful. But to truly grasp the scale of this lost technology, we must descend into the earth. Deep beneath the sands of Saqqara, Egypt, lies the Serapeum, an underground labyrinth holding a secret that challenges everything we think we know about ancient tools. Here in the silent darkness rest 24 massive sarcophagi, each one carved from a single, solid block of granite. This stone is phenomenally hard, a 7 out of 10 on the geological scale of hardness. To put that in perspective, the copper chisels that mainstream archaeology says the Egyptians used are only a 3. It is like trying to carve a brick of diamond with a stick of butter. The sheer physical implausibility is staggering, yet these boxes exist. Their exteriors are smooth as glass, with corners that are not just roughly square, but geometrically perfect, forming 90-degree angles with a precision we would measure today with laser levels and micrometers. The real mystery, however, lies inside. Each lid weighs an estimated 30 tons, and the hollowed-out interior of each box is a masterpiece of precision engineering. The surfaces are flawlessly flat, the corners just as perfectly square as the outside, and the walls are of a consistent, uniform thickness. How do you achieve this? Imagine the task. You have a solid block of granite the size of a small truck. Your goal is to hollow it out, creating a perfect, smooth-sided cavity, all while maintaining millimeter-perfect geometry. You cannot see what you are doing deep inside the stone. With a soft copper chisel, you would not be carving, you would be slowly, agonizingly, pecking away microscopic grains. It would take countless lifetimes to complete just one box, and the result would be a rough, uneven interior, pitted and scarred from the process. What we find in the Serapeum is the complete opposite. The surfaces are so precise they appear machined. This suggests a method that was not only powerful enough to cut granite, but also controlled enough to navigate complex internal geometry with visual accuracy. It points toward a technology that could remove material efficiently and accurately, something far beyond pounding rocks together. These silent granite boxes are not just tombs, they are artifacts from a different chapter in human history, one that forces us to reconsider the very definition of an advanced civilization. Even the most perfectly cut stone is useless if it remains in the quarry. This is where the mystery deepens from a question of skill to one of sheer, unimaginable power. We must now confront the logistics, the monumental task of moving these stones from their birthplaces in the earth to their final, sacred locations. The evidence left behind in ancient quarries presents a puzzle that is, in many ways, even more baffling than the finished structures themselves. Take the legendary stone of the pregnant woman at Baalbek in Lebanon. This single block of limestone is not just large, it is titanic, estimated to weigh around 1,000 tons. That is the equivalent of 2 fully loaded jumbo jets. The block was successfully cut free from the bedrock, its sides carved with clean, precise angles. But it was never moved. It sits in the quarry, a permanent monument to an ambition that staggers the mind. How did they even begin to detach such a mass? And more importantly, how did they plan to transport it? The conventional explanation of ropes, log rollers, and thousands of workers begins to collapse under the weight of such a task. The friction alone would be insurmountable. Dragging a 1,000-ton block on primitive rollers would require a force greater than what tens of thousands of people could exert. The ground would turn to mud, the logs would splinter into dust. This is not a simple engineering challenge. It is a physical impossibility with the tools we traditionally attribute to them. This has led to more speculative theories, ideas that push the very boundaries of archaeology. Some researchers propose the use of incredibly advanced lever systems and counterweights, a kind of lost mechanical knowledge that allowed them to manipulate mass in ways we no longer understand. Others point to legends and indigenous accounts that speak of technologies using sound or vibration, a method of making the stones temporarily weightless or fluid, allowing them to be guided into place. Whether these ideas hold any truth is not the immediate point. Their existence highlights the profound gap between the conventional narrative and the physical reality left in the quarries. The transportation of these stones remains one of the most tangible and utterly baffling pieces of the entire mystery. It forces us to ask if we are not just missing a tool, but an entire branch of physics that these forgotten builders had somehow mastered. The stones themselves are the final witnesses, and their testimony is undeniable. Scattered across these ancient sites, from the quarries of Aswan to the workshops of Giza, are unfinished blocks and discarded fragments. On their surfaces, we find the preserved marks of the tools that shaped them, and these marks tell a story that completely contradicts the official narrative. We are told this work was done with soft copper chisels, stone hammers, and simple sand for abrasion, but the evidence etched into solid granite tells a different tale entirely. Look at the saw cuts. In several locations, we find deep grooves sliced into granite and basalt, some of the hardest stones on Earth. The cuts are perfectly parallel, with a consistent width and depth that runs for feet without wavering. This indicates a saw blade that was not only harder than granite, but one that was applied with a steady, immense pressure, a mechanical consistency that human muscle power alone cannot achieve. The cutting rate implied is astonishing. It suggests a tool that removed material efficiently and quickly, not one that slowly, laboriously, ground its way through over centuries. Even more telling are the drill cores. In Egypt, archaeologists have found core samples that were drilled out of solid granite blocks. These cylindrical cores are a geological fingerprint. The grooves spiraling down their length are uniform and precise with a consistent feed rate. This means the drill bit did not wander or slow down. It plunged into the incredibly hard stone with a constant, relentless force. A simple bow drill spun by hand cannot generate this kind of power or consistency. The force required would snap the drill shaft. The groove pattern itself suggests a drill bit that was not just hard, but one that cut with a mechanical efficiency we would associate with modern diamond-tipped coring drills. The physical marks left behind point to a technology capable of applying immense, controlled force with tools that were far superior to copper and stone. This is not a matter of speculation, it is a direct observation. The very stone cries out, showing us tool marks that our conventional history cannot explain. If they were not using the simple tools we give them credit for, then what incredible instruments have been lost to time? What did these forgotten builders truly wield in their hands to carve the world as if it were soft clay? The stone itself was their first and most critical ingredient. These forgotten builders possessed a geological wisdom that rivals our modern material science. They did not simply use the closest available rock. With deliberate intent, they sought out specific types of granite, basalt, and andesite, stones renowned for their incredible hardness and resistance to the elements. This was a calculated decision, an understanding that the skeleton of their structures needed to endure for ages. Consider the towering walls of Ollantaytambo in Peru. Here, the builders incorporated a striking red porphyry, a stone that shatters conventional logic. Its quarry was not a nearby hillside, but a site located on the opposite side of a roaring river and a deep valley. Transporting these colossal blocks across such a formidable landscape was a Herculean task in itself. Why go to such extraordinary lengths for one particular type of stone? The answer lies in the rock's intrinsic properties. Red porphyry is exceptionally tough, resistant to weathering, and capable of bearing immense loads without fracturing. The builders knew this. They were not just stacking rocks, they were engineering for eternity, selecting materials based on a profound comprehension of how different stones would behave under stress, how they would interact with one another, and how they would withstand thousands of years of rain, wind, and earthquakes. This was not random selection. It was a masterful application of geological knowledge, a science that allowed them to see the future of their creations across millennia. Their choice of stone reveals a mind that thought not in seasons, but in geological time. What other secrets of the earth did these master builders understand that we are only now beginning to rediscover? This obsession with geological perfection finds its ultimate expression at the Giza Plateau. We often picture the Great Pyramid as a mountain of rough, uneven blocks, but this is merely its exposed skeleton. In its prime, it was something entirely different, a structure of breathtaking precision hidden beneath a skin of brilliant white. The pyramid was originally encased in polished Chora limestone, a gleaming facade that reflected the desert sun. Most of these stones were stripped away over the centuries, but the few that remain at the base tell a story that silences all conventional explanations. The joints between these massive casing blocks are not merely tight, they are optical. The average gap is a mere 1/50th of an inch thinner than a credit card. You cannot force a razor blade between them. This is a level of fit we expect from a master watchmaker, not from builders working with rudimentary tools on a structure the size of a small mountain. But the precision does not stop at the seams. The entire 13-acre base of the pyramid was leveled to within a fraction of an inch. To put that into perspective, that is like leveling an area the size of 7-city football fields so perfectly that a modern spirit level would find no significant variation. This is not just good workmanship, it is an engineering feat that rivals and in some ways surpasses what we achieve today with laser levels and digital theodolites. How could an entire workforce, thousands of men, achieve such uniform perfection across such a vast area? It implies something far beyond skilled labor. It points to a rigid, unforgiving system of measurement and quality control. There must have been a master template, a set of absolute standards that every single stone had to meet before it was set in place. Any block that deviated, even by a hair's breadth, would have been rejected. This is the mindset of a modern aerospace factory, not a Bronze Age construction site. The angular alignment of the pyramid's sides to the cardinal directions is another part of this same mystery. The deviation is almost non-existent. To achieve this, the builders needed a constant, unchanging reference point, a true north that they could sight on for years, a feat of astronomy and surveying that should have been impossible for their time. The casing stones are the final, silent testament. They prove that the true wonder of the pyramid was not its scale, but its exactness, a perfection carved into a 13-acre canvas that challenges our deepest assumptions about the past. This geometric perfection carved in stone extends its reach from the earth to the stars. The Great Pyramid's sides are not merely aligned to the cardinal directions. They are locked onto true north with a deviation of just 3/60ths of a single degree. Such accuracy is not a lucky guess. It is the result of sophisticated, long-term astronomical observation. But the cosmic connections go far beyond simple alignment. The pyramid's very dimensions seem to encode fundamental mathematical truths. If you take its perimeter and divide it by twice its height, the result is a number strikingly close to pi, the constant that defines the relationship between a circle's circumference and its diameter. This is not an isolated coincidence. We find similar mathematical and astronomical principles woven into ancient sites across the globe, from the sun gates of Tiwanaku to the star-facing temples of Angkor Wat. This pattern has led some researchers to a radical and deeply controversial theory. They propose that these sites were not placed at random, but were deliberately positioned on a vast global network, a web of so-called ley lines or telluric energy paths that crisscross the planet. While mainstream science dismisses the idea of mysterious Earth energies, the underlying observation remains profound. These ancient cultures, separated by continents and millennia, shared a common obsession with situating their most enduring creations in a precise relationship to the cosmos. They were not just building for the present, they were constructing a permanent map, a terrestrial mirror of the heavens, anchoring their sacred geometry to the unwavering cycles of the stars. This suggests a science that saw no division between the earthly and the celestial. For these forgotten builders, the universe was a single, interconnected system, and their stone monuments were the ultimate expression of that unified knowledge. What were they trying to communicate to the future by fusing advanced mathematics with mountain-sized architecture? Silence is not the natural state of these ancient chambers. Deep within the Great Pyramid, the King's Chamber possesses a startling acoustic quality. When a single, low-frequency note is sounded, it does not simply fade away. It lingers, it amplifies, and it builds upon itself, creating a powerful standing wave that vibrates through the very granite walls. This is not a random phenomenon. The chamber's specific dimensions and the hard, resonant stone from which it is built are perfectly tuned to create this effect. The same principle is found in the subterranean labyrinth of the Hypogeum in Malta, a structure carved from solid rock. Here, a male voice chanting at a specific pitch can generate a resonance that is felt physically in the bones, a hum that seems to awaken the stone itself. For decades, archaeologists interpreted these acoustic properties as purely ceremonial, a way to enhance rituals and create an otherworldly atmosphere. But what if the sound was not just for the ceremony, but was, in fact, part of the tool kit? This idea moves from the realm of archaeology into the world of high-frequency physics and indigenous memory. Legends from cultures in both South America and the Himalayas speak of a forgotten science where certain sacred chants or the vibration from specific instruments could alter the properties of matter. The stories claim that sound could make massive stones temporarily weightless, allowing small groups of people to guide them into place as if they were floating on water. Other accounts suggest that a precise, focused resonance could soften hard rock, turning it into a pliable, clay-like substance that could be molded and shaped with ease. While these concepts sound like pure fantasy to the modern ear, they offer a potential key to the most baffling logistical puzzles. How do you move a 1,000-ton block without crushing your log rollers? How do you achieve a machine-perfect finish on granite without hardened metal tools? Perhaps the answer was not to apply more force, but to apply a smarter one. The idea that these builders had discovered a way to manipulate gravity or matter with harmonic resonance remains highly speculative and is fiercely debated. Yet, the acoustic fingerprints left in these sacred spaces are undeniable. They stand as a permanent, audible clue, a whisper from the past suggesting that the true power of these forgotten engineers may not have been in their muscles, but in their mastery of the unseen vibrations that shape our world. The evidence for a lost chapter in human history does not end on dry land. It continues beneath the waves where the ocean guards its own profound secrets. Off the coast of Japan, the island of Yonaguni is home to one of the world's most enigmatic and debated structures. Lying under the clear blue water is a massive formation known as the Yonaguni Monument. From above, it looks like a sunken city, a sprawling complex of terraces, platforms, and towering structures all carved from solid bedrock. The most striking features are the sharp, 90-degree angles, the perfectly straight parallel walls, and the unmistakable forms of what appear to be wide, ceremonial staircases. The central structure is a colossal, tiered pyramid that rises from the seafloor, its surface is marked by clean, geometric lines that seem utterly alien to the natural, eroded shapes of the surrounding rock. The debate has raged for decades. Is this a purely natural formation, a quirk of geology, or is it the work of human hands? The sheer concentration of right angles and flat planes in one location defies simple geological explanation. Sandstone does fracture in straight lines, but it does not naturally form interconnected staircases and perfect archways. To stand on the seafloor and look at these structures is to feel the same unnerving presence one feels at Sacsayhuamán or Giza, a sense of deliberate, intelligent design. If this is indeed a man-made complex, its implications are staggering. The monument now sits at a depth that places its construction not thousands, but over 10,000 years in the past, during the last ice age when global sea levels were hundreds of feet lower. This was a time when, according to our standard history books, humanity was supposed to be in the Stone Age, living as hunter-gatherers, incapable of the collective organization and advanced engineering required for such a project. The precision of Yonaguni's geometric forms directly challenges that timeline. It raises a haunting possibility that a sophisticated culture, a true civilization of builders, existed in a forgotten epoch. Their world, their cities, and their knowledge were not lost to war or famine, but were gradually and completely swallowed by the rising oceans at the end of the Ice Age. This is not just a sunken rock. It is a potential ghost, a silent sentinel from a world that vanished beneath the waves, leaving behind only these cryptic stone clues for us to find. These stories of giants and gods are not mere folklore. They are the echoes of a profound and universal amnesia. When the Spanish conquistadors stood before the impossible walls of Sacsayhuamán and demanded to know who built them, the Inca priests did not recount a history of their own great engineers. They spoke of a race of giants who assembled the fortress in a single, miraculous night. Similarly, the Egyptians of the later dynasties, the very people who lived in the shadow of the Great Pyramid, had no records, no inscriptions, and no oral traditions that explained how their ancestors had achieved such a feat. For them, the pyramid was simply there, a timeless monument built in a primordial age by gods or demigods. This pattern repeats itself across the globe. The later cultures that inherited these magnificent sites had no memory of the techniques, the tools, or the knowledge required to create them. They saw the work, recognized its impossibility, and could only explain it through the intervention of supernatural beings. This collective loss of memory is one of the most significant clues we have. It points directly to a catastrophic break in the chain of human knowledge. Something happened that severed the line of transmission between the original builders and the peoples who came after. This was not a gradual forgetting, like a language slowly fading from use. This was a sudden, decisive silence. The technology itself was so advanced, so far beyond the understanding of the succeeding cultures, that it could not be replicated, and eventually, it could not even be comprehended. The achievements of the builders became literal magic, their methods lost to the point of being unimaginable. This forces us to consider what kind of event could cause such a total and widespread cultural reset. Was it a global cataclysm, a disaster so immense that it wiped out the civilization that possessed this knowledge, leaving only their indestructible stonework behind? The legacy of these forgotten builders is not just in the stones they left, but in the void of memory that surrounds them, a silence that speaks volumes about the fragility of human knowledge and the true scale of what has been lost. The global pattern of this lost precision forces a radical question. Could these sites be the scattered fragments of a single, forgotten world? The theory of an antediluvian civilization suggests exactly that. It proposes that a highly advanced culture spanned the globe in a distant epoch, long before the rise of any known historical empires. This precursor civilization would have possessed the sophisticated knowledge of geology, astronomy, and engineering we see etched into the stones. Their world, however, was not destined to last. The theory links their disappearance to a great cataclysm, most likely the tumultuous end of the last ice age. As the massive glaciers melted, sea levels rose by hundreds of feet, swallowing entire coastlines and continents. This was not a single flood, but a protracted global disaster that would have shattered any civilization dependent on coastal cities and stable climates. In this narrative, the mysterious builders were not wiped out by war or disease, but by the planet itself. Their most enduring creations, the granite boxes, the polygonal walls, the star-aligned pyramids, were all that remained above the water. These were not the beginnings of human achievement, but the storm-wrecked survivors of its peak. This idea finds a haunting echo in the myth of Atlantis, a powerful island nation described by Plato as possessing advanced technology before it sank beneath the waves in a single day and night. While mainstream archaeology dismisses Atlantis as pure legend, the theory uses it as a symbol for a very real possibility. The global distribution of these impossible structures is the central piece of evidence. How else do we explain the same construction signature appearing in Peru, in Egypt, in Lebanon, and in Bolivia? These cultures, according to our history books, never met. They developed in complete isolation, yet they all seemingly mastered the same impossible art of moving and cutting megalithic stone with machine-like precision. The antediluvian theory offers a simple, unifying answer. They did not invent these techniques independently, they inherited them. The survivors of the cataclysm, scattered and reduced in numbers, would have carried fragments of this advanced knowledge with them as they migrated to new, higher ground. Over generations, the full understanding of the technology faded into myth. but the core principles of their monumental architecture remained, becoming the foundation for the first civilizations we recognize today. The Great Pyramids of Egypt and the immense walls of Peru are not original inventions. They are the last fading echoes of a blueprint from a world we have forgotten. These mathematical fingerprints are not random decorations. They are a fundamental part of the blueprint. The geometry encoded in these structures goes far beyond simple squares and triangles. It speaks a language of cosmic harmony, a system where numbers and shapes hold a deeper meaning. Consider the Parthenon in Greece. The entire facade of this iconic temple is a masterclass in the application of the golden ratio, a specific proportion found throughout nature, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. The width to the height, the spacing of the columns, even the smallest decorative elements, all relate to one another through this divine proportion. This was not an accident. It was a deliberate choice to create a building that felt inherently beautiful and balanced to the human eye, because it mirrored the very patterns of the natural world. The same principle is woven into the very fabric of the Great Pyramid. The ratio of its base perimeter to its height gives us a close approximation of pi. The angles of its passages align with celestial events. This is not just architecture, it is applied mathematics on a grand scale. For these builders, geometry was not an abstract school subject. It was a sacred language, a direct reflection of the universal order they saw in the stars, in the growth of plants, and in the human form. They believed that by building according to these perfect mathematical laws, they were creating a bridge between the earthly and the divine, anchoring their structures to the eternal. The stone was simply the canvas. The true masterpiece was the invisible, perfect geometry they inscribed upon it, a code left for us to decipher across the millennia. The story does not end with the silent ruins of antiquity. It resurfaces shockingly in the modern era in a quiet corner of Florida. Here, a single man performed a feat that echoes the mysteries of Giza and Sacsayhuamán. His name was Edward Leedskalnin, and his life's work was the Coral Castle. Working entirely alone from the 1920s to the 1940s, this 5-foot-tall, 100-pound Latvian immigrant quarried, carved, and positioned over 1,000 tons of oolitic limestone. The blocks themselves are colossal, with one famous stone gate weighing an estimated 30 tons. He did this without modern machinery, without large crews, and most mysteriously, almost entirely under the cover of night. When asked how he managed such an impossible task, Leedskalnin would simply smile and say he had discovered the secrets of the pyramids. He claimed to understand how the ancient Egyptians levitated their stones, a knowledge he said was based on the laws of weight and leverage, and the manipulation of what he called perpetual motion holders. His explanations were cryptic, written in pamphlets that read more like riddles than engineering manuals. He spoke of understanding the cosmic forces that hold the planets in their orbits, and how he could tap into that same energy to make the heavy coral blocks virtually weightless. The physical evidence he left behind is as baffling as any ancient site. The centerpiece of the castle is a 9-ton revolving gate, a single piece of stone so perfectly balanced on a simple automobile, bearing that a child could push it open with one finger. It rotated seamlessly for decades, a masterpiece of precision engineering. The entire complex is built with an uncanny exactness, with stones fitting together so tightly that no light passes between them. How did one man, with only a 4th-grade education and a set of homemade tools, achieve this? He used tripods made from old telephone poles and chains salvaged from automobile axles, equipment that by all rights should have been utterly inadequate for the task. The conventional explanations of block and tackle, leverage, and sheer determination fall short. they cannot account for the speed, the secrecy, or the sheer physical logistics of maneuvering multi-ton stones by himself. Edward Leedskalnin's Coral Castle stands as a haunting, modern monument to a lost knowledge. It is a poignant and personal reminder that the secrets of the ancients may have been rediscovered, not by a vast corporation or government, but by one determined man, only for those secrets to die with him, leaving us with the same unanswered questions carved in stone. Standing before these walls is a deeply unsettling experience. Your eyes see the impossible, while your mind struggles to fit it into a familiar story. This is the raw feeling of cognitive dissonance, the mental shock that occurs when reality contradicts everything you have been taught. You have been told that ancient cultures used simple copper tools and stone hammers. Then you run your hand over a seam in a granite block where the fit is so perfect it feels like a single, fused surface. The two ideas cannot coexist. One of them must be wrong. This moment is more than just curiosity. It is a genuine crisis of faith in the established narrative of human history. The official timeline, with its neat progression from primitive to advanced, begins to crack and crumble before your eyes. If our ancestors were truly these simple, struggling people, how did they carve mountains into perfect geometry? The question hangs in the air, unanswerable by the textbooks. This confrontation opens a door in the mind, a willingness to consider that our past might be far stranger and far more mysterious than we ever allowed ourselves to believe. We are forced to accept a humbling truth. Our model of progress is not a straight, ascending line. It is more like a spiral or perhaps even a circle where knowledge can be gained, perfected, and then completely lost, leaving future generations to stare in wonder at the ghosts of a forgotten age. What other profound understandings of the world, of nature, of the very fabric of reality, have vanished without a trace, leaving us to reinvent the wheel while standing in the shadow of a masterwork we can no longer comprehend? On the sun-scorched islands of Malta, a different kind of mystery is carved from the soft local limestone. Here stand the megalithic temples of Haga Kim and Mnajdra, their colossal slabs arranged into forms that feel both ancient and eerily familiar. These are not just piles of rock, they are the oldest free-standing structures on Earth, predating even the Great Pyramid of Giza by more than 1,000 years. Their age alone is a profound statement, a declaration that monumental architecture began far earlier than we ever supposed, but it is their design that truly captivates. The temples are not random enclosures, they are complex structures with a clear, sophisticated floor plan. The builders arranged massive, multi-ton blocks into a series of semi-circular rooms, or apses, connected by a central corridor. This is not crude stacking, it is architecture with intention, a blueprint executed on a grand scale. The techniques they used reveal a deep understanding of engineering. To create doorways and ceilings, they mastered a method called corbelling, carefully overlapping successive layers of stone until they met at the top, forming a stable, beehive-like vault. This intricate, step-by-step process required foresight and precision, a skill set that should not exist in a place that, according to the archaeological record, had no metal tools. How did they achieve such complex construction with only stone and bone? The mystery deepens when you stand in a specific chamber at Mnajdra during the dawn of an equinox. As the sun rises, a slender beam of light pierces the main doorway, sliding perfectly through the temple's heart to illuminate a central stone slab. This is not a lucky alignment. The entire structure was deliberately oriented to capture the sun's rays on the most significant days of the year, the solstices and equinoxes. This means the builders were not just engineers, they were astronomers. They possessed a precise calendrical knowledge of the solar cycle, and they encoded that knowledge directly into the bones of their temple, turning stone into a cosmic clock. This fusion of colossal strength and celestial observation is the same signature we have seen across the globe. It suggests a shared, foundational knowledge, a way of building that connected earth to sky and that flourished in a forgotten age of giants. This insistence on simple tools and sheer manpower is the bedrock of mainstream archaeology, a position defended with the principle of Occam's razor. The idea is that the explanation requiring the fewest assumptions is usually the right one. So, the official story goes, these incredible structures were built with copper chisels, stone hammers, ropes, and an army of workers toiling for generations. It is a neat, contained answer that fits within our established timeline of human progress. But when you stand before a granite box with a machined perfect interior, the sheer weight of the anomaly begins to crack that foundation. Critics of this orthodox view pose a challenging question. What happens when the simplest explanation fails to explain the evidence right in front of our eyes? When the tool marks on solid granite suggest a cutting rate and precision that copper cannot achieve, is it still the simplest answer, or is it simply the most convenient one for our existing model? The refusal to seriously investigate these anomalies can become its own form of dogma, a gatekeeping that protects a narrative rather than pursuing a mystery. A truly scientific approach would follow the evidence, no matter how uncomfortable the path may be. To dismiss the physical data because it does not fit our current understanding is not skepticism, it is a closed mind. This great puzzle of the past demands an open and fearless inquiry, one that is willing to ask if our story of human history is not just incomplete but fundamentally mistaken. Modern experiments have tried to bridge this gap in our understanding with sweat and steel. Teams of dedicated researchers and skilled stonemasons have taken up the challenge, setting out to prove that the ancient methods were indeed within human reach. They gather the tools we believe were available, copper chisels, stone dolerite hammers, and abrasive sand, and they set to work on fresh blocks of stone. With softer limestone, the process shows promise. The copper can, with immense effort and time, carve grooves. The stone hammers can pound and shape. A rough approximation of an ancient block can be achieved, but the moment they turn their attention to granite or basalt, the entire experiment grinds to a literal halt. The soft copper chisels bend and blunt against the unyielding stone, their edges folding over after just a few strikes. The dolerite hammers, meant to fracture the granite, themselves shatter into useless fragments. The abrasive sand does slowly grind away material, but the pace is glacial, measured in millimeters per hour, not the efficient cutting we see in the ancient saw marks. The experiments consistently produce rough, pitted surfaces, a world away from the mirror smooth finishes and optically perfect seams found at Giza or Puma Punku. After weeks of backbreaking labor, the teams might manage to shape a single small corner, while the ancient builders were flawlessly finishing multi-ton blocks with dozens of complex faces. This is not a matter of effort or skill. The modern masons are experts. The gap is technological. These honest attempts to replicate the past do not close the mystery, they widen it. They prove conclusively that the toolkit we attribute to the ancients is woefully, demonstrably inadequate for the task they accomplished. If it was not these simple tools, then what incredible force were they wielding to make granite seem as soft as clay? Descend into the cool, damp air beneath the temple of Seti I, and you will find a mystery buried in plain sight. The Osireion at Abydos feels like a world apart from the elegant, hieroglyph-covered halls above. Here, the architecture is raw and powerful, built from colossal blocks of red granite that dwarf any human scale. The style is starkly megalithic, a brutalist vision of stone that echoes the massive, minimalistic construction of the Valley Temple at Giza. It feels fundamentally different, as if it belongs to another age entirely. The precision, however, is hauntingly familiar. The giant blocks are cut with clean, sharp lines and fitted together with the same exacting standards we have seen across the globe. This creates a profound architectural dissonance. Above ground, you have the refined artistry of the New Kingdom, with its detailed reliefs and ornate columns. Below, you have this Cyclopean skeleton, a structure of such immense, simple power that it seems to form the ancient foundation upon which the later temple was knowingly built. The logical implication is staggering. The Osireion may not be a contemporary of Seti I, but a relic from a far earlier epoch, a pre-existing monument that the New Kingdom Egyptians discovered, revered, and incorporated into their own sacred complex. They built their temple around this forgotten core, perhaps as a way to tap into its ancient power or to honor builders they knew they could no longer emulate. This is not just another Egyptian site. It is a geological layer cake of history, where one advanced civilization literally built upon the ruins of another, even more mysterious one. Perhaps the true purpose of this impossible precision was not merely to build a wall, but to build a statement. The incredible effort invested in these structures points toward a motivation that goes far beyond simple shelter or defense. In the worldview of many ancient cultures, stone was the element of permanence. It was the bones of the earth, the one material that could withstand the relentless flow of time. To shape this eternal substance with such mathematical perfection was, in a very real sense, an act of worship. It was an attempt to create a permanent, ordered sanctuary in a world of chaos and impermanence. These builders were not just constructing buildings, they were trying to carve a piece of eternity itself. Think of the Great Pyramid, its sides aligned to the cardinal directions with astronomical precision. This was not just a technical achievement, it was a way of anchoring their creation to the unwavering cycles of the cosmos, marrying the solid earth to the movement of the stars. The structure became a physical model of a harmonious universe, a place where the divine order of the heavens was reflected in the perfect geometry of stone. The flawless seams, the exact angles, the sheer endurance of the work, all of it served a higher purpose. It was a spiritual and philosophical declaration, a way of saying that humanity could, for a moment, touch the timeless. The immense labor was a form of devotion, a sacrifice of time and energy to create something that would stand as a testament to their belief long after their own names were forgotten. Why go to such impossible lengths to make a joint between two stones invisible? Because that perfect seam was more than a construction technique. It was a symbolic act of unity, a denial of entropy, a small, deliberate victory over the decay that defines our mortal world. The precision itself was the message, and the stone was their chosen medium to speak across the ages. The shadow of these masterpieces fell long across the centuries, directly shaping the civilizations that came after. When the Roman Empire expanded into the Levant, their engineers encountered the colossal platform at Baalbek. They saw the foundation of titanic stones, blocks so immense that their own technology could neither quarry nor move them. So the Romans did something telling. They built directly on top of them. They constructed their own grand temple of Jupiter, using the pre-existing megalithic wall as the ultimate foundation. This was more than practical recycling. It was an act of symbolic appropriation, an attempt to graft their own empire's legitimacy onto the perceived power and timeless authority of the original, godlike builders. They were living in the echo of a greater age, and they knew it. This pattern repeats across the world. In Cusco, Peru, the Spanish conquistadors built their colonial cathedral right upon the indestructible, earthquake-proof walls of the Inca, who had themselves built upon the even older polygonal masonry of a forgotten culture. It was a literal layering of history, where each new wave of humanity used the ghost of the past as its bedrock. The enduring presence of these structures served as a permanent, unnerving reminder of a lost golden age. They set a standard of ambition that later cultures could scarcely comprehend, yet desperately tried to emulate. The sheer scale of Roman aqueducts and Gothic cathedrals can be seen as a form of imitation, a drive to achieve a similar level of immortality in stone, even if the original methods for doing so had long since vanished. These ruins were not just passive relics, they were active instructors whispering of a time when humanity built for the ages, fueling the architectural dreams of every civilization that stumbled upon their silent, imposing forms. The legends of a sunken world find a powerful echo in the sacred texts of India. The ancient Sanskrit epic, the Mahabharata, describes in vivid detail a glorious city named Dwarka, the capital of the god King Krishna. It speaks of a bustling port filled with grand palaces, wide boulevards, and a society of immense wealth and sophistication. But the story does not have a happy ending. Following a great war and the departure of Krishna, the epic states that the entire city was consumed by the ocean, vanishing beneath the waves in a single, catastrophic event. For centuries, this was considered a beautiful, symbolic myth, a poetic allegory for the end of a golden age. Then, marine archaeologists began to look. Off the coast of modern-day Dwarka, in the waters of the Gulf of Combat, their sonar scans revealed something astounding. The seafloor was not a featureless plain. It was dotted with the distinct geometric outlines of what could only be man-made structures. Divers confirmed the incredible find. Lying on the seabed were the remains of massive stone walls, some running in perfect parallel lines for hundreds of feet. They found large, rectangular platforms and the scattered foundations of what appeared to be interconnected buildings, all laid out in a clear, organized plan. This was not a random collection of rocks. The layout exhibited a deliberate, intelligent design, the hallmark of urban planning. Among the silt and sand, they recovered artifacts that anchored these ruins to a specific time: pottery shards, beads, and stone tools that were carbon dated to be several thousand years old. The most telling finds were stone anchors, the kind used by ancient mariners to secure their ships, pointing to Dwarka's identity as a major, thriving port city, just as the legends had always claimed. The sheer scale and precision of the submerged ruins suggest a civilization with advanced maritime and architectural knowledge, a society capable of constructing a metropolis that could withstand the ocean's fury for a time, but not forever. If these underwater walls are indeed the remains of the legendary Dwarka, they provide more than just proof of a myth. They offer tangible stone and mortar evidence for a sophisticated culture that flourished on the Indian subcontinent in a forgotten epoch, a civilization whose world was ultimately claimed by the rising seas, leaving its story to be passed down as legend until the day we were finally able to look beneath the waves and find its bones. The stones are no longer silent. We are now learning to listen with tools that see through solid earth and scan entire jungles from space. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses deep underground, painting a ghost image of hidden chambers and buried walls that have eluded explorers for centuries. In the dense rainforests of Central America, LiDAR technology strips away the canopy to reveal the sprawling gridwork of entire lost cities, proving that civilizations were far larger and more complex than we ever documented. From orbit, satellite imagery identifies subtle chemical changes in the soil, pinpointing the locations of ancient structures invisible from the ground. This is not guesswork anymore. It is a technological excavation, a way of peeling back time itself without ever lifting a shovel. But the investigation goes even deeper, to a microscopic level. Scientists are now applying advanced material analysis to the stone surfaces themselves. By studying the microscopic striations and polish on a granite block, they can potentially distinguish the unique signature of a copper chisel from something far harder and more efficient. They can analyze the mineral content of a stone and trace it back to its exact quarry, sometimes hundreds of miles away, mapping the astonishing trade and transport routes of the ancient world. These technologies have not yet provided a single, definitive answer to the great mystery. Instead, they are generating a flood of new, undeniable data. Each hidden chamber, each unknown city, each microscopic tool mark is another piece of a puzzle that is growing larger and more complex. We are accumulating evidence that does not fit the old model, a steady pressure building against the walls of conventional history. This is how a paradigm shifts, not with a sudden collapse, but with the relentless, quiet weight of new facts, forcing us to see the ancient world not as we have imagined it, but as it truly was. The pursuit of answers brings with it a profound responsibility, one that weighs heavily on the shoulders of archaeologists and historians today. Every footstep in a place like the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, every touch on the smooth granite of an Egyptian sarcophagus leaves an invisible mark. The very carbon dioxide from a single visitor's breath contributes to the slow erosion of ancient limestone. This is the central ethical dilemma of our time, a conflict between our insatiable thirst for knowledge and our duty to act as guardians for the generations yet to come. These structures have survived millennia of natural disasters, only to now face their greatest threat, our own curiosity. The pressure of mass tourism can destabilize ancient foundations, while the simple act of clearing a site for study can expose it to wind, rain, and sun, accelerating its decay far faster than if it had remained buried. Even the most careful archaeological excavation is inherently destructive. Once a layer of soil is removed, that context is lost forever. We are, in a sense, destroying the very evidence we seek to understand in our rush to understand it. How do we justify potentially harming a site that has stood for 10,000 years for the sake of answers we may not even find? The solution lies in a new paradigm of preservation, one that embraces non-invasive technology as our primary tool. Ground-penetrating radar and laser scanning allow us to see inside walls and map entire cities without ever breaking the surface. Drones can document intricate carvings high on temple walls that are too fragile for human hands to touch. These digital records become a permanent, perfect copy, a backup of our heritage that can be studied by countless researchers without a single grain of sand being disturbed. This shift in mindset is crucial. We must learn to see these sites not as puzzles to be solved by taking them apart, but as sacred libraries to be read with our eyes, not our hands. The ultimate goal is not merely to uncover the past, but to ensure that these silent sentinels of a forgotten age are still standing, holding their secrets safe, when future technologies finally allow us to listen to their story without causing it to crumble to dust.